What is the most litigated thing in real estate? I'm going to tell you the answer to that question just as soon as we review the Stouffville market stats for October 2021. So like my other videos, what we're going to have a look at, we're going to have a look at October 2020. So we'll compare what happened a year ago in Stouffville. We'll have a look at September 2021 as well to give you a bit of contrast. We'll start with the numbers. So if we look at new listings, which is the N, 134 new listings came to market in October 2020. Sales through the month was 101, and the active listings, which carried over into November 2020, were 178. If we look at September 2021, we had 109 new listings coming to market, 84 sales through the month, and 62 active listings, which carried over into October. And in October, we had 88 new listings, 85 sales, and 62 active again. So one thing I just want to mention, so the months previous to September, what we had been seeing for 4 or 5 months is that the number of new listings coming to market had actually been contracting. It had been getting less and less and less. Now, typical for September, what we see is listing inventory climbs a little bit, but buyer activity also picks up. In the case of September this year, buyer activity was fairly similar to previous months, but we did see more listing inventory come up, and you'll see that through the rest of the stats. If we look at average sale price across all home types, 1,101,000 in October 2020, 1,482,000 in September 2021, currently trending at 1,362,000. Now, before you think, oh my gosh, the market's crashing, because I know a lot of people are hoping for that, I talk to every day. Got to remember, this is an average sale price across all home types. So we're talking about condos, semis, towns, links, everything. So what happens, especially in a place like Stouffville, where there's a lot of diversity, there's farms and multi-million-dollar homes, and then there's townhouses, condos. So again, you're averaging across all home types. So one month you might get more multi-million-dollar homes selling, and another month you might get more townhouses, condos, and semis selling, which they do drag the price down. I'm not trying to diminish or minimize that in any way, but the lesser properties, if more are selling, it'll bring the price down a bit. Sales to new listings ratio is also known as the absorption rate. It tells us that out of the homes coming on the market each month, what is the percentage that are actually selling? So a year ago, 75.4% of the homes that came on the market across all home types sold. In September 2021, 77.1% of the homes that came on the market sold. Currently trending at 96.5. So when I said you would see the numbers show up again into the stats, here we go. So you had 88 listings coming to market. You had 85 of them sold. So, you only had a couple of listings that didn't sell. So your absorption rate is obviously climbing, right? So if you want to talk about what's a buyer's market, what's a seller's market, 96%. It's a seller market. Typically anything we see over 60%, 60 to 100 and 100 plus, because we do see that from time to time, is indicative of a seller market. Between 50 and 60 is a balanced market, so there's enough supply to meet the demand. And under 50% would be considered a buyer's market. Months of inventory remaining, a great stat as well, tells us, these are my two key stats, by the way, if you've watched my videos. Months of inventory remaining tells us that if no more listings came on the market after today at the current rate of buying, how long would it take to completely deplete the inventory? So a year ago, 1.8, 1 month of inventory in September, currently trending at 0.7. Apologize for my typo. And so again, we're seeing that through the numbers. Less listings coming to market, sales stayed the same, and active listings stayed the same as well. So, you might wonder what active listings consist of, and they are listings that didn't sell that particular month. But we do see in every market, and I talk about this in my other videos, we do see in every market where there, even in today's market, where there are listings that have been hanging around for 30, 60, 90 days. They do exist out there, and that's what's going to be in those listings as well. Sale price to list price ratio just under asking a year ago at 99.8, 104.5 in September, currently trending at 109. So homes selling 9% over asking. So part of that is I would suggest to you that we are seeing a number of homes out there, especially in the Stouffville market. I personally live in Stouffville, where they're listed at 1.1, 1.2, and they sell at 1.3, 1.4, 1.5, that kind of thing. So there is an intentional underpricing of the home when putting it out on market to cultivate that bidding and multiple offer process. But certainly, with absorption rates like this and with seeing a sale price to list price ratio like this, tells me that those buyers were competing hard for those listings because fewer listings coming on the market. So anybody that wants, needs, or has to get into a house in the near future is going to compete hard for it, and they did. Days on market to get a home sold 24 a year ago, 19 in September, and 12 in October. So again, not surprised to see this number come way down again, just because less listings coming on the market and buying staying fairly steady. So the question I started with was, what is the most litigated thing in real estate? It is chattels and fixtures. And we know this from surveys conducted by the National Association of Realtors. Now, chattels and fixtures are quite simply, fridge, stove, washer, dryer, light fixtures, bathroom fixtures, mirrors, that kind of thing. There's an old rule in real estate, a rule of thumb, I should say, which says if you turn a house upside down, if it sticks, it stays. So essentially, when buying a house and you're thinking to yourself, what stays and what goes? Because, when you're reviewing a listing, even as an agent or as a buyer, sometimes not everything is listed in the listing. There's only a certain amount of characters that we can put in, a certain amount of words that we can put into a listing. So sometimes we don't see that. And so there can be an assumption made that, well, this and this and this and this should come with it. But we know that, here's another rule of thumb for you, good fences make good neighbors. My position on chattels and fixtures is I never assume. Most new homes that come on the market, like if they've been purchased built within the last 15 years, all have a rental hot water tank. Some have a rental furnace and AC, and you won't always see that stuff in the listing. And sometimes the agent won't know who's listing the house for sale. And goodness gracious, I have seen it sometimes where the seller whose property I have listed for sale doesn't know if they have rental items. So you have to remain, as an agent, when listing a house for sale, I'm speaking more for myself, I remain extremely vigilant on that because I want to make sure that I have all that information and that information is in the listing. And if there's not enough room in the listing, you want to make sure that it's in a Schedule A, Schedule B, Schedule C, whatever, just to make sure that it's listed off for somebody. Because I've seen homes run down to the finish line, and all of a sudden we find out at the last minute there's a rental hot water, there's a rental furnace, there's a rental AC, and hot water tanks I would say are pretty normal. But the things that do creep in there from time to time, especially with costs going up and notwithstanding what's going on now, there's been a real increase in, the cost of air conditioning, fireplaces, things like that. People have made a movement towards leasing as opposed to buying because the cost of entry is a little bit less. The other thing that gets overlooked in houses the last, couple of years is certainly wall mount TVs. Again, if you turn a house upside down, if it sticks, it stays. Well, a TV wall mount technically would stay, but for most sellers, they are going to take that off the wall and take it with them so they can go to their new house. So again, it is important. It is absolutely crucial importance that when you list your house for sale, you don't want to complicate your closing. So make sure all that stuff is listed out. So whether I am your realtor of choice or you have an agent that you're already working with or you plan on working with, make sure you lay all that information out there so that way you can uncomplicate the process. And for buyers, certainly you want to make sure that you know all that information because you're doing your calculations and you're figuring and you want to get a full understanding and a full scope of what's going on with that property before you sign on the dotted line. So again, don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't assume. I hope you found this information helpful. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out.